Good evening and welcome to the special broadcast right here on NDTV. We join you, Monideepa and I join you from battleground Nandigram. It has been a contest which perhaps many were expecting, but the sort of turn, a dramatic turn it took in the afternoon is something that you can see in the visuals, and Monideepa was right there when all of it was unfolding. Monideepa, the authorities, the administration, even the politicians knew that this is a volatile part of West Bengal. Violence can happen, all sorts of things can happen. First of all, let's talk about those dramatic pictures. I was here, she suddenly left. Absolutely. Suddenly and surprisingly she left and moved towards this school called Boyal. What happened there? What were the circumstances, and what made her stay inside that booth for close to 2 hours?
Well, to understand this, you have to know that the Trinamool has been complaining that at Boyal, their poll agent was not being allowed to enter. That's what prompted Mamata Banerjee to stop at Boyal. First stop, once she left over here. And she stopped at Boyal to find
Just for the benefit of our viewers, Boyal is actually a polling booth. It's a school in the Nandigram area.
It's a village with a school, and it's about 6-8 kilometers from here. She went in there, and it's not on the road. It's in a little gully down which you cannot take a vehicle. And so Mamata Banerjee went down that stretch, 1 kilometer or so, on her wheelchair, and she reached there. People began to gather, curious about this, and she went right in. So at that point of time, nothing happened, but the crowds had gathered, and suddenly there were slogans of Jai Shri Ram, and those got quite agitated. And at the same time, there were Trinamool supporters shouting right back. There was a ground over there, you must be seeing the pictures, on two sides, the two groups of people, very agitated, police in between, trying to make sure they don't clash. Mamata Banerjee went inside and was stuck inside the polling booth, and that went on for 2 hours.
She was stuck inside the polling booth because who asked her to stay there?
Security concerns. She went in. She and the whole police, force with her, they completely cordoned off.
Advised her to stay inside till the situation comes.
Absolutely, and that took time. And she was sitting in this narrow, dingy little corridor with no lights that I could see. Forget about fans. And she was calling all over the place. And one conversation I definitely overheard was when she was talking to the governor. Saying that, I feel my life may be in danger. This is the situation. The whole administrative setup has collapsed. I'm stuck inside over here. That was one call I heard her make. There were many others, and they were agitated. And her point was that the whole machinery of the election commission seems to have collapsed. First of all, you have a situation where your agent is not allowed in, and then you have a situation when she comes in, and there are these protests.
But thankfully, there was no violence, and thankfully there were no casualties. That is a big relief. Now let's talk about the overall picture, Monideepa. As you have been reporting non-stop, the sheer number, the brute force available right here of paramilitary, of state police, is to ensure that no untoward incident happens. Would you, and what are the reports that you are getting, would you say that considering the volatility, the elections in Nandigram, barring this incident, were largely peaceful?
I would. There has been no violence as such. I know that there has been a suicide or / murder. That is a bit controversial. We don't know what really happened. That's the one case of a death. The rest of it has been reasonably violence-free in Nandigram. There has been tension. In many of the booths that I visited, you could feel it. You could feel the tensions over there. Mostly in the mixed areas where there were Hindus and Muslims, voters. But otherwise, violence, physical violence, no. Worse was Keshpur, really, in West Midnapur, where a BJP candidate was very dangerously attacked, and one person was actually killed early in the morning. So yeah, Keshpur was much worse than Nandigram.
Correct. So we'll as we move along, we've discussed about the security situation. One major concern will now be that now that the polling is complete, what are the chances of a post-poll violence, and why the administration cannot take this situation lightly? We're going to discuss that, and also the prospects of these two candidates. Right? Either way, it's a high-stakes battle. One person will win, and if the other person loses, he will have an extremely diminished role going forward, because there will be this tag of having lost Nandigram. which is going to be a huge thing. Let's now quickly play out what Mamata Banerjee said and then what the Prime Minister said in return in a separate rally away from Nandigram. Let's play out those.
वो क्या करेगा बेचारा? वो लोग तो सेंट्रल फोर्सेस है, हम उसको लिए आई एम प्राउड ऑफ देम, हम उसको हमारा बाबा सिस्टर मानते हैं, लेकिन वो तो होम मिनिस्टर इंस्ट्रक्शन दिया है। क्यों इलेक्शन कमीशन होम मिनिस्टर के इंस्ट्रक्शन सुनेगा? और इलेक्शन का अंदर में अगर वो साउटिंग स्लोगन चले, पब्लिक को गांव से नहीं आने दे, तो किसका गलती है? इलेक्शन कमीशन को इसको बैड रिजल्ट नहीं हो रहा है, इलेक्शन कमीशन का बैड नेम नहीं हो रहा है। हम तो चाहते हैं इलेक्शन फेयर एंड फेयर हो। हम सेशन का टाइम में देखा, हम पूरे का टाइम में देखा, हम और भी बहुत सारे था जो इलेक्शन कमीशन ऐसा खराब इलेक्शन हमको नहीं देखा।
दीदी दीवार पर लिखा हुआ पढ़ लीजिए, आंख खोल करके पढ़ लीजिए, कान खोल करके दीदी सुन लीजिए। ये बंगाल की जनता इस चुनाव में आपको सजा दे करके रहने वाली है। साथियों, अभी कुछ ही देर पहले नंदीग्राम में जो हुआ वो हम सब ने देखा है। ये दिखाता है दीदी अपनी हार मान चुकी है। ये दिखाता है बंगाल में बीजेपी की सरकार बनने जा रही है।
All right. Now, before we proceed any further, Munidipa, see, the point is, as you have just also said and we have discussed, that thankfully it did not turn physically violent. Things were controlled by the administration. Do you think this has to do with anticipating a situation like this? And how is this going to play out in other volatile areas in the future? For instance, parts of North 24 Parganas, South 24 Parganas, which are known to be far more violent than perhaps this area.
Well, if the kind of force that was in Nandigram, 22 companies, if that kind of force is allotted to constituencies, then perhaps things will be great. But do we have the wherewithal to put so much force in every sensitive constituency? That is going to be an issue. But Nandigram in a way has shown that though there was intimidation, terror, tactics before and after the polls, just the physical presence of this large number of forces does make a difference. I will say that yesterday I was wondering where are the forces. Till about 6 o'clock I saw very little. But from 6 p.m. I saw a lot of vehicles going around, which was like an area domination. And then today from the morning there have been forces, and there have been forces, security forces, in significant and visible numbers at the polling booths. That somehow has come as reassurance.
Okay, before we show the pictures to our viewers of what exactly happened, Munidipa was there. She shot extensively of the moment when that that very delicate situation erupted. It was extremely dramatic. I would choose to believe extremely scary also, because things could have gone either way. And also after things cooled down, Munidipa actually managed to climb on top of a building to get you like a sort of an aerial view of what was happening. So we'll play those clips. But Munidipa, very quickly, as far as Mamata Banerjee is concerned, the pictures of her in a wheelchair, in a little room, what would that have done to the voters? See, because what the Prime Minister has done in his Uluberia speech and earlier also, he has mentioned this fact. He has said that the fact that the Chief Minister has to stop her campaigning elsewhere and stay put in one constituency for 3 days shows that she is nervous.
Well, the pictures, you've seen them. Yeah. Mamata Banerjee sitting on a wheelchair inside that tiny little booth. Then there are pictures of her being pushed down the road. And as we came away, there were pictures of, people shouting Kala Hobe, the slogan that has sort of really become the national anthem for the Trinamool Congress. It depends on who you speak to, how the pictures are interpreted. The Trinamool supporters say sympathy, 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 no question about it. But the BJP will tell you she looks weak sitting on a wheelchair. She is handicapped by having to campaign in the fashion that she is doing, and no one buys the fact that she needs to still be on a wheelchair.
But the fact, Monidipa, that she's still here and she feels the need to perhaps avoid campaigning in other areas and be in her constituency this late, move around from booth. I know it is a very typical or characteristic of Mamata Banerjee to just go anywhere, right? But the fact that she is here, are you saying that it is open to interpretation and thus extremely unclear of what this means?
See, yesterday she did step out of the constituency and go and campaign.
Went to Shingur.
She went to Shingur and other Goghat, etc. But I also know that yesterday she decided that instead of leaving for Kolkata today, she's going to stay on till tomorrow.
Okay.
Obviously concerned about the fallout of the elections, wants to keep an eye on how things are going post-polls. So yeah, there are two ways of reading this.
Sure.
She could be staying on because she feels it's more, it makes the voter feel safe or her feel safe. But she's off tomorrow to North Bengal, and that's going to be another huge leg
Absolutely.
of campaigning.
Very, very crucial. Before we carry this conversation forward, and there is one crucial aspect of these two personalities, Suvendu Adhikari, and how much impact has his attack on one religion and speaking in favor of the other has made on people. How much of that is going to translate into votes, and how much can Mamata Banerjee regain the trust/support of the people of Nandigram? We'll discuss these two personalities in just a short moment. Let's quickly play out those programs or those clips or that presentation sent by Monidipa earlier in the day from that school where all the drama was unfolding. Let's play that out.
Around 1:15, Mamata Banerjee left her home at Reyapara, and then a huge motorcade of journalists and security vehicles, they just rushed towards this place, Boyal, and then she got off and on a wheelchair went down 1.5 kilometers. Now look at what is happening over here. The forces are coming back, and we don't know which way this is going to go. We are just going to wait here with some, and we are going to negotiate with the Trinamool Congress, it seems. Completely intimidating pictures, let me tell you, unprecedented. I don't know how this is going to be resolved, but a complete failure of any kind of normal machinery in this seat of Nandigram that the whole world is watching. Vote today in the dance for democracy. Again, the whole contingent of security forces have gone over there to try and negotiate with the Trinamool supporters, and who knows what they will agree or disagree to. But is this how they are going to be able to restore normalcy in the area? You can see the BJP supporters there shouting, clapping, clearly feeling that they have the upper hand in this hostile situation, so resembling of a battlefield, with two sides facing off on two sides, and Mamata Banerjee, the Chief Minister of the state, stuck, incarcerated in a room over there inside the polling booth, which I'm going to show you from here, because once we go there, the connectivity goes down and we lose pictures. This is an unprecedented situation in any election that I have covered. A chief minister stuck between hostile voters and friendly voters at a booth in Nandigram, the most highly watched election in this election season in Bengal. But if this is what is going to go on for close to 2 hours now, I have been watching this drama unfold in front of me. I really don't know what to make of it and how the resolution will be struck. We'll have to just keep watching the situation unfold. Dramatic developments in Nandigram. The most closely watched election, this whole Bengal assembly. And what a scene we have seen. The most dramatic pictures you can ever hope to see in an election that was already slated to be dramatic. Nandigram at booth at village Goyal. Mamata Banerjee being escorted out by hundreds of security personnel. There she is on her wheelchair after the few most dramatic moments of her electoral life. Didi, shabdhane, shabdhane. Ore baba, shabdhane thakun. So there she is, happy that we are asking her to be careful. But what an afternoon it has been. All Trinamool supporters here, there to greet Mamata Banerjee. But when she arrived at Boyal at about 1:30 in the afternoon, there were more BJP supporters shouting Jai Shri Ram slogans and, in a way, abusing Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee. It was an ugly sight. On one side, there was Trinamool workers, and on the other, there was BJP supporters. A near face-off at what can only be described as Kurukshetra. Mamata Banerjee had come in here, her first stop after she left home, because she had heard that Trinamool's polling agent had not been allowed to enter, and she would have none of that. But she ended up having to spend 2 hours inside a polling booth, calling for help, telling the governor she felt her life was in danger or something to that effect, and saying that the whole system had collapsed upon her. Election Commission officials and paramilitary have come and are now escorting her back in the most dramatic chapter in the history of this Bengal election, certainly sending Nandigram to the headlines once more. With G.D. Shankar, Monideepa Banerjee, NDTV.
Welcome back. You're watching this special broadcast with me and Monideepa. Now the Election Commission has submitted its report on this incident, Monideepa, and it's just a, like a summary or a report of what happened. It talks about, the Honorable Chief Minister being there, who's also a contesting candidate. She left the place at 3:35 p.m. There were some people over there, nearly 3,000 people who reached the station. All of them have left now. Observers are here besides the authorized police personnel, including the Central Paramilitary Force. Okay. So it's a comment that has been made by the Election Commission observer. But Monideepa, let's now talk about these two personalities. And I was very interested in asking you this question on how much has Suvendu Adhikari's comments / utterances against a religion or in favor of a religion has impacted the voter over here. What is your assessment?
Well, certainly it has. You know, there are the majority Hindu voters, many of whom are thinking the way he is speaking. There are.
Even before he came into the reckoning?
No.
Or he made them think like that?
He made them think like that. Honestly, all his comments, controversial ones, they have only started, I would say, in the last 3-4 weeks, not before that.
But why would it gain traction if it is not true? Generally asking.
True fact. No, if you ask me, the main problem that people are talking about, and somehow that problem has, condensed into...
Appeasement?
Appeasement is one, definitely. But more than that, it is corruption. The corruption at the panchayat level. Amphan, people have not got their, dues. Or panchayat goods, whatever, housing or your toilet or your water supply. People feel they have not got what they should have. This is a large segment of people who will tell you that. And therefore that anger has somehow condensed into also what Suvendu Adhikari is raising, the hate speech. Very sad to see that. Because Nandigram, we all know that in 2007, Hindus, Muslims, they fought for their land together. Even today, there were people, in mixed population areas who are saying that they're really sorry to see what is happening and hope that it will not, plummet into something worse. But Suvendu Adhikari's comments have found some traction in this area. But overwhelmingly, I will say, it is more political, the anger against the Trinamool Congress, and not the Hindutva right. That somehow is not something that I have sensed.
But then how does Mamata Banerjee, or do you think that she's been able to do quote-unquote damage control? For instance, if you speak to people here, they largely feel that her two core constituencies in her election gamble in Nandigram has been the 2M factor. Muslims plus Mahila. Right? We have to also see, while there is polarization on one end, religious polarization, there could be gender polarization also, which she may want to use. Has she done that effectively?
Again, this is something we have been discussing, and I will tell you that the few places that I've visited where it is majority dominated, women are as outspoken against Mamata as anyone else. And again, in the minority dominated areas, women swear by her. And in those areas, Hindu women too completely swear by Mamata Banerjee. So, you know, it's hard to pass a judgment and say this lot believes. You know, it's hard to pass that. So I wouldn't. I'd say it's individual women, certainly in large numbers, like Mamata Banerjee.
And that's what makes decoding this election in Nandigram very, very difficult. All right, we've run out of time, but thank you so much, Monideepa. I don't know where you go after this. Kolkata, hopefully, but then later on moving to other areas and other constituencies also, because the election, this is just end of phase 2. There are 6 more phases in West Bengal. We are stopping for a short break right now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay with us.